and we decided to build out the company, the business, the sustainable business, where our passion to solve difficult problems met the demand in the industry. So this is our journey. We started off in 2016, late 2016, and we started off with a product that was supposed to be in demand at that time because major brands like Facebook opened up their platforms for conversational interfaces, and it was a good timing to introduce such a product for Georgian market, and especially in regarding to the challenges of the language that is very different from every other language that you encounter around the world. So besides that, we decided to not stop on conversational interfaces and tackle different problems like vision, like voice recognition. And the reason for doing that was that the market is so small in Georgia that it's different approaches that in regards to, for example, Silicon Valley, because you have to generate some revenue to pay utilities, pay rent, pay salaries, etc. So it's not as luxurious experience as, for example, in Silicon Valley, because I'll address those issues in next slides. So during our journey, what we learned was that in Georgia, you have to basically bootstrap yourself to success, because what's different in building business in Georgia versus in Silicon Valley is that you have to be self-funded, basically, because you can't just go to venture capital firms or to angel investors and ask money, pitch the idea and ask money for some amount of time to burn that money to build out the product. You have to basically build a product and sell it simultaneously. That's why you have to try different things, what works, what not, and learn by doing, basically. Of course, there will be some hurdles, there will be some rejections, but basically what we learned was that every rejection we had, like some idea that we had, but market and the demand was not there. It was the experience and knowledge that we gained that put us on the right track, and that eventually led us to mostly to the right decisions that appear to be choices that led to the success. So it's easy when something works, like you have the business, you have product, you have the clients, and when something works, it's very easy to fall into the trap of easy money, basically. And by saying that, I mean that you go into this field of satisfaction, and you lose that ability to move forward and tackle more harder and harder problems. But that was not what we did. From the first moment that we started working, we approached our time and effort in a way that we needed to so our passion from the get-go was to tackle the hard problems, right? So we needed to do more and more. So every penny that we got from our clients was going into the research and development, because otherwise we would just stay where we were. So that was the one of the major decisions that we made. That was that we just invested all the money that we got into the acquiring more talent, acquiring more knowledge, and doing harder problems. So that led us to discovering this principle of um, doing things from the bottom up. So first principles, because in Georgia, the coincidence that we got was that we were in a place and in a business that required shift in doing things in a way that involved language understanding. So whenever you do something, for example, in other places in a more traditional way, is that there are things done by others that you don't have to do again and reinvent the wheel. But in our case, when we had to do language understanding part, we didn't have anything done before us, and we had to do it by ourselves, like understanding what was the principal components into solving our problems, and then building up from there. So that led us into the mindset of doing everything in with a first principle approach. So by solving Georgian language understanding part, and by acquiring this knowledge of doing things by first principles, uh, without us knowing, led us to solving every problem by that approach. So the language, the experience and the knowledge that we gained appeared to work everywhere. So it doesn't matter right now whether we work in Georgian language or any other language, or basically any other problem-solving case that we have, because we have this framework of approaching problems by first principles. So this unique experience is applicable for every other domain that we go after. But there, so there are reasons, many good reasons, to move abroad. For example, in Silicon Valley, because what we learned was that the approaches and the knowledge that we had, the energy that we're putting in Georgian market would be much more fruitful in Silicon Valley, and that was the decision and the mindset that we acquired when we visited Silicon Valley back in 2018, when we visited the conference there. We met very interesting people, and the knowledge that they shared to us was that we were not very different from the startups that are tackling problems there, because of the same reason, because the experience that we gained. And they helped us understand that we didn't knew otherwise, because we always were thinking that we were different, like Western startups, technology startups are way ahead of us or something. But it's not like that. The experiences that you gain here, if they're structural and if they're fundamental, they could be built up and combined in a way in a products that would be easily solved in abroad. Of course, there are many components that needs to be in place for that to work. I'll address that in following slides. So, why go to Silicon Valley? So obviously it's a biggest single market in the world. There are companies there that you could easily meet in Starbucks, and you could easily discuss any topic that's of interest for you. Of course, the investment opportunities. I already mentioned that you can't just go here and meet some investors easily and discuss that. Of course, they have their own language, and of course, the awareness of Silicon Valley style investing is not here. Of course, it's getting better. The awareness is getting better, but of course, it's not comparable to Silicon Valley. So everyone is there. Every tech company, every innovation, every single person that's interested in doing business in tech. It's not only AI or something. It's different companies. For example, many companies are doing things in a sustainability field, etc. So, of course, I don't know about the weather. I guess me is an exception, but some people say it's a good weather there. But yeah, but it's not always easy. It's not easy to just go to Silicon Valley and pitch the idea. Of course, there are many barriers, like those people just don't know us. They don't know who we are. They don't know where we come from. They don't know how good we are at managing people or managing money or how we spend money, or they even don't know where the Georgia is on the map. And that leads us to the several tips to share. Like it's all about the solving problems, right? You don't just have the idea and go about doing that. It ought to be from the underlying problem in the market that you're trying to solve the problem. And you have to know the VCs, right? So you have to be in their shoes to understand how they look at you, what they expect from you, and that's the reason and the point that I'm making, that the startups here that are doing something should go there and at least talk to those people and understand their viewpoint, understand how they see the world, so that you can account for that and see the world in their shoes and understand what they're expecting from you. So, about the approaches that we're making and what led us to be successful in Georgia was that, well, in our field, what we're making, and especially when we started back in 2016, you couldn't just go out and find experts in AI. That was just not possible. And the way we approached that was that we just gathered some people with shared passion about solving problems, and we made sure that they had proper groundwork so that they have the ability to solve the problems and the underlying knowledge, like deep knowledge about underlying technologies. And of course, we didn't know how to exactly manage the company and the team. So the qualities that we were looking for coincided with the fact that those people, their passion, and if you trust them and if you let them work their best, then it will just work. And you could just trust those people, and the business will work in that way. That's our basically our approach that really worked, and we're very proud of that and our team. So back to the title. We see our mission and our goal, not only us succeeding, but we see that if we just have this kind of success in the Silicon Valley, then it would be much easier for local startups to go after the same goals that we have. And it's so our aim is to be like a last startup that needs to explain that we're from Georgia, not the state. So one funny coincidence, this is our friend from Washington, D.C. He met his portfolio companies. It was some dinner, and he was talking to the investor next to him, and he was asking, was there recent early stage startups that he invested in? And he replied that actually he made his second, and he was telling that one founder is in Silicon Valley and the rest of the team is based in some country, Georgia. Have you heard of that? And he was just fascinating that he was convinced that he was talking about us. And so yeah, we think that if we just personally introduced ourselves and our country to some 35 investors in Silicon Valley, then that means that for the newcomers, that would be easier to introduce themselves and getting them to know about their products, their people, their habits, and the way they are doing business. And we hope that it would be helpful from them, and we hope that we'll play a role in paving the way into that success for others as well. So that's the event that I was pointing at, and yeah, that's my co-founder, Dachi, with me in Silicon Valley, and thank you.